So can you
Yeah.
talk about how now as you're a coach, how you kind of support your athletes' mental health and, just beyond just performance?
Yeah. Yeah. Those relationships really do help. And I think that one thing that we really make known to our student athletes is that our doors are always open. And we are always more than happy to have them come in and chat with us about whatever it is that they need to talk about, whether it's, what's going on at home or with family or, with the team. And if there's, stuff that they're feeling heavy about, or, whether it's they're struggling with anxiety or depression, like Taylor and I both have, we've gone through that and we know what it's like. And I think that's, something that's helped us a lot is we are relatable and we try to stay, as relatable as possible. And we are vulnerable with them and we do share parts of our lives that.
You are listening to the Beyond the Scoreboard podcast, transforming athletes into leaders on and off the court with host Coach Furtado. Coaches, are you ready to take your passion for coaching and turn it into a full-time career? I know the challenges firsthand, but the Make Money Coaching Sports program helped me take BTG basketball full-time. If you're tired of juggling coaching part-time and want to fully focus on doing what you love, this business accelerator will give you the tools and support to make it happen. Hit the link in the show notes below to learn more and start living your dream. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Beyond the Scoreboard podcast. Today, we not only have a guest, we have a friend of the show and of myself on today. We have a guest, Karly Nowak. Karly is the assistant coach for University of Oregon's Acro and Tumbling team, where she also competed for 4 years there as well. So welcome to the show, Karly.
Thanks for having me, Justin. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So you're the second person from the University of Oregon Acro and Tumbling program, as I can guess. You can guess who else has been on the show. So I'm excited to have you on, get a different perspective, because I get a lot of basketball coaches on, but there's so many through lines we can learn from coaches across sports. So kind of diving right into that. Before we get into your coaching career, I would like to just share what kind of impact the sport of acro and tumbling had on you beyond the scoreboard.
Yeah. I mean, acrobatics and tumbling had a huge impact on my life. The 4 years that I spent at Oregon were something that I could have never even imagined that they would be. I made, so many connections, whether it was with teammates, friends in the athletic department, other sports. I made a lot of connections, for my career, and just networking with so many different people that I never thought that I would get to talk to or get to meet. Our athletic director, and even as a student athlete, just being able to be a part of our SAC committee, which is our student athlete advisory committee, and being able to support other student athletes through their journey, and kind of just be able to continue this into coaching has been such an amazing opportunity. And to be coached by, some of the greatest coaches in the sport, and now to coach with one of them is just, honestly, it's a treat. And it was something that, I'll always be grateful for.
Absolutely. So it sounds like a lot of it led to just a lot of opportunities and people that you got an opportunity to meet and connect
Yeah.
with. And so, before we even talk about University of Oregon, let's even rewind a little bit to how was the process to becoming a Division I athlete?
Yeah. The process, for us, we are all recruiting. So we don't do tryouts or anything like that. It's all recruiting based. And so when I was kind of getting recruited, acro was still so new. And I had a few teammates. I did all-star cheerleading growing up. And I had a few teammates that went on to do acrobatics and tumbling in college. And I thought it was really interesting. So after a cheer competition, me and my mom, we drove a few hours to go see the Baylor Oregon meet in Waco, Texas. And I was watching, the meet, and I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. And so from there, I kind of I looked it up, I watched videos, I tried to figure out how I could contribute. And then I went to a camp out here in Oregon. And so the camp was really cool. I got to actually try acro and kind of see what it was like. And after that, I was sold. There was nothing else that I wanted to do from there. And so that's kind of where my journey started. And then we start recruiting junior year at the end of your sophomore year. So junior year, I was emailing the coaches, I was having phone calls with them, I was coming out on visits. And that's kind of, how that worked out for me. Yeah.
So, from your perspective, like as someone who was being recruited, how much of it was you taking kind of initiative and reaching out to Oregon or other schools? And can you also talk about the process of were you considering other sports to potentially compete in college, like gymnastics?
Yeah. So in my time, when I was getting recruited, it was a lot on, on the athlete. There's a recruiting questionnaire that you fill out, and that's kind of how you get started. So you had to take that initiative to fill out that questionnaire, to show interest in the program, to email them and be, just let them know that, you're interested and you think that you could be an asset to the team. And so that was kind of how that worked out for me. And then once I kind of, filled out the questionnaire, I got my name out there, and then I went to the camp and all the things. The coaches then started reaching out to me, and we could kind of, do that back and forth. But it's kind of changed a bit since I was an athlete, and now the roles have kind of reversed. We still get athletes that reach out to us with interest, of course, but we do a lot more reaching out on our end before, uh, before we even get interest from some athletes. Um, so yeah, and then can you repeat the second question?
Like because acro and tumbling is a relatively newer sport.
Yeah,
What made you want to choose acro and tumbling versus
right,
other
right.
opportunities in sports to
Yeah,
compete in college?
yeah, absolutely. And so before I knew that acro was a thing, I kind of was looking either to go and do cheer at one of the colleges or just go for school. And so the unique thing about acrobatics and tumbling is the opportunities that it gives you as a student athlete. With cheer, there aren't many scholarships to offer, and there aren't many benefits that you get. You're not a varsity student athlete, and so you don't get treated like every other student athlete at the university. And that's what's so cool about acrobatics and tumbling is you're a varsity athlete. You get everything that everybody else gets. You get all the perks, you get all the gear, you get all the resources, all the support, and so that was really something that drew me to acro. And obviously the scholarship piece is huge. Being able to, get that money to help you get through college is, something that a lot of, female student athletes don't get the opportunity. So I thought that, that was really cool. And it feels really special to be able to kind of take the background of cheer and put it to something new and something, with more opportunity, and that could take you, really far.
Absolutely. No, and I love that. And then it,
Yeah.
pays for part of an education or a lot of the
Yeah.
education and creates those opportunities like you talked about earlier on. And I want to circle back to this conversation just to give the coaches and parents that are listening to this, kind of your thoughts now as a college coach on what you're looking for recruits. But before we talk
Yeah.
about that, I want to talk about your transition from being an athlete to then being a coach. And like we had
Yeah.
talked about right before we started recording, I know that you are still coaching athletes that you were teammates with. So what's that transition been like for you?
Yeah. For me it was pretty easy. There were obviously a few bumps, but it was easy for me because I think that as an athlete, I was very much a leader on the team. And I kind of took that initiative to, my junior and senior year, be more of a, a coach per se, as, to my teammates. And I was always trying to help them out. I was trying to, make them better and give them corrections and kind of help them and also help myself, become a better leader. And at the time I didn't know that I was going to be coaching, but it did help me become a better coach. And I think that, I worked really hard to gain the respect of my teammates. And I think that that helped me a lot with the transition from, being a teammate to then being a coach. Um, and, it was, it was weird at first. I won't lie, they're, they were my friends. We hung out, outside of acro. And so to not be able to do that and to kind of have to, now I'm telling them what to do. And, I am, the authority. It's weird and it's kind of uncomfortable at first, but the team was really respectful about it and they did such a good job. And I think that, like I said, just being that leader and being, you know in the circle as a teammate, but also kind of, 1 foot out, and just having those boundaries, creating the boundaries, especially when I found out my senior year that I was going to be coaching. Just kind of like taking a step back and being, more, just more on the outside of the circle and kind of just being that almost like a big sister rather than a best friend, just kind of guiding them and trying to, respect and have them respect, the boundaries that I set. And, that was something that definitely helped. And I think some of them still, still slip up and they don't call me Coach Karly. They call me Karly sometimes, but it's a work in progress. And I'm honestly just really grateful that I have such, amazing athletes that respect me and respect the transition and all those things. So, yeah.
Right. And it sounds like because you took initiative in terms of like your upperclassmen years and leadership, that it was relatively kind of a natural flow. Of course, there's going to be some
Yeah.
athletes that push the boundaries, and that's just kind of natural. So,
For
for the newer coaches that are listening to this show, I know I do have some coaches who are just starting to get in. What
Yeah.
is like, if you had to have two or three takeaways from your first year on the job that you kind of learn from either mistakes or you learn from T Galv, who's the head coach for those that don't know,
Mhm.
in your first year that now in your second year you're more prepared for?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is be confident. You're in this position for a reason and you know what you're talking about. And I think that was a big thing for me my first year. I started out and there were a few things that happened and sometimes I would stand up at the front of practice and be like, I am I don't know why I'm here.
Hmm.
I'm not old enough for this,
Mm. Right.
And so like I'm not qualified. And
Right.
I would tell myself that a lot, which was hard, but I think um just being confident that you're there for a reason and that you know what you're talking about. And also too, like nobody's perfect. Even as coaches, we're not perfect. We make mistakes and things like that happen and that's okay. And that's how you learn and that's how you grow. And if you have, athletes that respect you, they'll work through that with you. And they won't take that, and hold that against you for whatever mistake, you make. And um so I think that's a really big thing. Is really being confident in what you know and the knowledge that you have. Um and then the second biggest thing is also having, humility for when you do make those mistakes. And just being able to own that and not, dwell on it and just be like, you know what? Yeah, I did make that mistake and that happened, but we're going to move on from it. And we're going to learn from it and being open with your team about that too. Is a big thing. I think we try to do that a lot. Is just when we make a mistake, we own it, and we talk to them about it, and they might be mad at you, and that's okay. And everyone will grow from it, and everyone will move on at some point. But just being able to acknowledge mistakes and figuring out how to move forward from there. And then I would say my third biggest thing is really just like build relationships with your athletes. I think that's something that has made this a lot easier, is just knowing my athletes, knowing what they need, knowing what they want, how they want to be coached. Everyone's different. Each individual on the team needs something different, whether it's tough love or whether, they need a little bit, us to be a little bit softer with them sometimes, or, whatever that looks like. I think learning that from the beginning and being able to build relationships with your athletes, both, in acro or in the sport and also outside, show interest in what they're interested in, and what they like to do outside of just being a student athlete, because it's easy for them, and for all athletes to, you know get stuck on, I'm just an athlete, like that's all that I have to me, but there's so much more to everybody. And so, yeah, just building those relationships and being open to, you know even being vulnerable with them. I think they appreciate that a lot, and that's something that has brought me and my athletes a lot closer, is just being open with them, and showing interest in them as more than just an athlete.
Absolutely. Yeah. We always talk about on the show, like coaching the human first, athlete second. And
Yeah.
so it sounds like, kind of just to summarize, that the three biggest lessons is number one, being confident, right? It's hard, right? When you're stepping in, you're the young coach, but you also had 4 years of experience with the sport and with
Yeah.
leadership experience the two previous years. So just kind of stepping into that and having humility, because we as coaches make just as many mistakes as athletes do, just in our own different ways. And then I think the most important is, like you alluded to, building those relationships is so important. So
Yeah.
I want to kind of pivot and talk a little bit more about you and kind of your process and your own development with recognizing your identity as being more than just an athlete, because I know, especially for collegiate athletes, it can be really easy to get wrapped into, like,
Mm.
I am an athlete. Yeah, I guess I'm a student, but like I feel like my athleticism is the reason, like, I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a tough journey. It really starts from the beginning. And I think, as a freshman, I never realized what it would look like. And you don't really think about it very much. But, towards, I think it was probably my sophomore year. And this is kind of where I see it come up a lot, is, you know, I started to struggle a lot with mental health. And I think that had a lot to do with the fact that I was wrapping up my identity in being a student and being an athlete. So if things weren't going well in school, or, I didn't feel like I was performing my best in acro, it, it took a toll, on me, and on, just the way that I was able to perform and all of those things. And so, luckily for me, I reached out for help, almost right away. And I was never one to talk about my feelings or talk about anything of that nature, but I knew that being a student athlete, that was really important. And that's something that's, really cool about being a student athlete, especially at Oregon, is those things are talked about. And they there's a lot of resources for you to be able to reach out to. And so, you know that's what that looked like for me. And I still, throughout all my 4 years, struggled with mental health, but I was able to kind of use those resources to understand, like, why I was feeling the way that I was feeling. And it did have a lot to do with, my identity and who I was. And I think, even being, just going to college, you're really trying to figure out who you are, and what you like and what you don't like, and, who you mesh with. And it can be a lot. There's a lot of pressure to make friends, and, be the best and get the good grades and all the things. And so, um, I think that's the hardest part of being a college athlete, or being an athlete at all. It's not, you have the skill, and you can perform the way that, you're meant to, but it's 99% a mental game, and 1%, the skill. And so I think that, um for me, it was finding ways that I could be involved in, the community at school or, in the athletic department that didn't necessarily have to do with me being just a student athlete. And so, like I said, I was, involved in the student athlete advisory committee. And even though that's just for student athletes, it gave me an outlet to kind of meet other people and to talk about other sports and other things. And not just, focus on acro all the time. And it made me realize that I was really passionate about things, like mental health and like, just building relationships, and I figured out who I was as a friend and who I was as a partner and all those things. And so, um, just finding things that you're interested in outside of sport and finding those people who will support you through that and kind of help you find those things. And then, also too, just it's a work in progress, and honestly I'm still working on it to this day. And I still find myself, because I am a coach, getting wrapped up in, my college experience and being an athlete and what I could have done differently and what I could have done better and all the things. But I kind of have to catch myself and take a step back and be like, okay, but there's a lot more to life than just that. And there were a lot of things that I did well, and some things that I didn't, but that's okay. And I'm still, in a great place, and I still, have all the friends and all the things that I hoped for. So I think just finding your purpose outside of just being an athlete and, just being perfect all the time, and I think the biggest thing too is like athletes, a lot of it is fear of failure. And I think that, you have to realize that you have to fail, to grow and to be successful. And so, I think those were the biggest things for me, figuring out how to kind of, you know, figure out where I was at other than just being, a student athlete.
Failing to grow is so it's an essential like life skill though that you learn
Yeah.
right through college athletics, through even any athletics, right? But I want to kind of touch on what you're talking about, and I wasn't a college athlete, but I've got the opportunity to kind of obviously I talk to one all the time, but I have
Mhm.
other friends that kind of talk about it. And right once you get to like college athletes, even high school varsity to a certain level, it's like your job is to perform or you sit the
Yeah.
bench, right? And so when you right wrap your identity around how well you perform, right, it then becomes like that weight. And
Mhm.
I have shared I think before on the podcast about one of my friends who is senior year, like similar situation to you, like sought out a therapist and
Mhm.
was a baseball player, and then his identity was so much around baseball his entire life, and then he finally kind of just like let go and was like realized like this is the end of the world if I don't pitch well, and like he
Right.
had his best, and unfortunately COVID kind of cut his season short, but he like pitched his best game ever. It's just like kind of like releasing that, and so it's just like I think we as coaches can put a lot of pressure even on our high school athletes, for the high school coaches listening, even the youth coaches, like if we're always talking about them as performers and not connecting with them as humans,
Mhm.
we're kind of building that relationship that we only love them when they perform well. So can you
Yeah.
talk about how now as you're a coach, how you kind of support your athletes mental health and just beyond just performance?
Yeah. Yeah. I, those relationships really do help. And I think that one thing that we really make known to our student athletes is that our doors are always open. And we are always more than happy to have them come in and chat with us about whatever it is that they need to talk about, whether it's, what's going on at home or with family or, with the team. And if there's, stuff that they're feeling heavy about, or whether it's they're struggling with anxiety or depression, like we, Taylor and I both have, we've gone through that and we know what it's like. And I think that's, something that's helped us a lot is we are relatable, and we try to stay, as relatable as possible. And we are vulnerable with them, and we do share parts of our lives that, not everybody knows about, but, it helps them to kind of not almost get on our level, and relate to us where, obviously we're their coach, but like I said, like, we make mistakes too, and we also have our own struggles, and, we're not perfect, even though, they think that we expect them to be perfect all the time. And I think, that's a natural thing to feel, but that's, you know, we tell them that we don't expect them to be perfect all the time, obviously, because nobody's perfect all the time. We always expect them to give 100% effort, and we expect them to have a good attitude about it. And we expect those things from them. And at the end of the day, like, we, the reason that their expectations is because we expect those things, but we know that they're not going to happen all the time. And so I think just them knowing that, our doors are always open, and that we are people too, and we're not just coaches, and we have our own things, and just being open with them about that is really big. And it has been something that I think has helped them a lot. Um, and then also, just pointing them towards the right resources, whatever it is that they need. And even so, like, we can tell when somebody's off at practice. And that even if they're not necessarily showing it super well, like, if they're, less talkative than normal, or if they are, just showing signs of not being themselves, we always reach out. And we'll always either, pull them over after practice, or, shoot them a text and be like, hey, like, I noticed that you were a little off today. Like, is everything okay? Is there anything that you need to talk about? Is there anything, that's going on with, is it acro? Is it, school? Is it home? Is everything just really overwhelming? And so we try to be really on that, and we try to, reach out to them, um, and make it known that, we want them to talk to us, and we want them to feel like they can talk to us, and we want them, you know, to just be able to, work around those issues, and be able to figure that out, whether it's with us or with, any of our other support staff. But just knowing, letting them know that we're there for them, and we're there to support them no matter what.
Yeah, supporting athletes is it's I feel like it's essential as a coach, and that's
Yeah.
where kind of it's the art of coaching, like staying relatable, like you talked about. It's you have to balance and draw that line between like boundaries, right? Like I'm not your
Yeah.
friend, I'm your coach,
Right.
right? And also staying relatable, and so that's kind of it's the art, and right, and that's where the mistakes come in. Sometimes you may be
Yep.
kind of a little too authoritarian, to put it in air quotes, or might be too friendly. So
Yeah.
we can it can be easy to swing there, and that's where we have some of those conversations to be like, all right, the expectations are a little bit off. But that's just kind of the joy and the fun of coaching. And so can you talk about how fun, like, and how much joy, like, coaching brings you? Because I can see it as you're talking about it, and I want to grow the profession of coaching. I know it's not always the most paid job, but in my opinion, especially for
Yeah.
youth athletes, like, coaches can make such a big impact. So can you talk about how fun coaching has been the last couple of years, or
Yeah.
rewarding?
I
Maybe
mean,
sometimes it's not always the most fun.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not always fun. But
Right.
it is a lot of fun. And I think, rewarding is definitely the right word. Coaching is probably one of the most rewarding jobs that you could have. And I think too, for me, being a student athlete who had coaches that I looked up to and that I respected so much, and then, being able to give that back to student athletes now, it's amazing. And it's such a good feeling to know that, your student athletes feel supported, and they feel like, um, they're getting the coaching that they need, and even just like in life, I've had coaches, and throughout my 4 years at Oregon, I had coaches that I will never forget, and they have impacted my life until the day that I die. And so just being able to give that back to somebody else is such a surreal feeling. And I think that it's more than just, them being your athlete and you being their coach. It's these are the most important some of the most important years of their lives. And, just being able to coach them in the sport that they love and that you love, and then also to watch them grow as people and, become adults and respectful, adult human beings is just, it's honestly crazy to watch. And to see how much they grow from, their freshman year when they get here as just, still teenagers. And then they grow up and they go and they get these big jobs at, you know, marketing firms and all these things. And they're doing, really cool things, just in life. And then just like being good friends and being good people. And so I think that's the most rewarding part of it, is just to be able to watch them, become like good human beings, and become a part of society is just, it's really cool to watch them do that. And then, when they are successful, when they win things and they win national championships or they win meets or whatever it is, they hit that skill that they've been working hard at for so long, and they just finally get it. Like, it's just the coolest thing to watch and to be able to be a part of that. Um and it's more rewarding to even be a coach and watch them be successful than it is to, be successful as an athlete. And so I think it's the coolest feeling.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's just like you're like so invested into their growth and development
Yeah.
process as humans, right? It's great when they hit that skill, whether it's, a tumbling pass or, a jump shot. Like that's great,
Right.
right? But what's
Yeah.
more important, right, is watching them, for me when they go to college, and for you when they're going to get a job, and just becoming, right, like you said, productive citizens in society. And so
Yeah.
it's rewarding, right? It's not always the most fun. You got to have hard conversations. There are days where you want to hit your head against the wall, but I'd rather do
Yes.
this than any desk job any day of the week. So
Yeah.
with that being said, I'd love for you to kind of shift the conversation back to
Mhm.
now what you're looking for, right? We're kind of talking about the end cycle of the athletes and watching them grow and develop. Now for you in a high level collegiate program, I
Mhm.
do want you to share your wisdom on not necessarily the skills you're looking for, like obviously you're looking for certain techniques with their tumbling or their ability
Mhm.
to throw people in the air. I'm lacking the proper terminology for it.
Yeah.
But what are the character skills you're looking for in a high school athlete to become a part of the University of Oregon program?
Yeah. Um I think obviously we focus on the skills. Those are things that every coach looks for.
Right, right.
But the most important thing is, what are your values?
Hmm.
What's important to you? What's a priority to you? You know, are you coachable? Are you willing
Mm,
to, try new things? Are you willing to, come out of your comfort zone and, you know, test yourself and push yourself to be better every single day? Um, I think it's really easy to get caught up in, okay, but my skills are elite level, and they're, I have all of the, the X, Y, and Z's, but like, if you're not if you don't have the same values and you don't fit in with our team, and you don't, you know show respect to your coaches, or we don't feel like you're going to show us respect or respect your teammates, like that's a huge thing. Um and the willingness to work and the willingness to, put in long hours. And typically that, the hard work piece is easy because they've been doing that their whole life. But are you willing to, even push past that? Um, our sport especially is huge because it's a brand new sport in college. It's not something that many people do at the youth level. And so for us, it's, you know, like I said, are you willing to step outside of your comfort zone and try new things? Or are you, are you someone that's just going to stick to what you know? Because that's not going to, that's not going to work in our sport specifically. And even, just how you talk to your parents, how you talk to your friends, how you talk to us. If we bring you out on a visit, how are you, connecting with the team? How are you talking with them and all of those things? How are you upholding yourself on social media? That's a huge thing for us too, is social media and, you know, how are you portraying yourself to the rest of the world? And I think that those things are really important to us because we can coach the skills. We can fix a technique. We can, help you train these new skills and we can do all of those things. But it's not always easy to, change your mindset and change, who you are and how that will work with our program. So I think that that's a really big thing that we pay attention to is really just who are you as a person. And we take a lot of time in our recruiting process to get to know our recruits and to get to know our potential student athletes. And for that reason, because, you know, there are times that we have potential student athletes that we feel just wouldn't mesh with our program and our standards and all those things and they might be really good athletes, but is it worth you know bringing them out and them not being the person that we need them to be, um because that plays a really really big role in a team, and just having camaraderie and everyone being able to come together and be there for each other, and have the same values and uphold the same standards, um, and so that's a really really important thing for us as coaches to look for.
Yeah, to summarize, it sounds like, are you willing to learn, right? Because it's a new sport. Are you coachable? And then what are your values? And really, most importantly, now it's like your brand is everything, right? So obviously, social
Mhm.
media is a big way that young athletes and really all people, including ourselves, portray ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Just to the world, right? So how are you
Mhm.
portraying yourself? I actually had a conversation with an athlete, and he was going to he's a sophomore, wants to play college basketball, and
Mhm.
he wanted to name his like custom AAU team. I'm not even going to say what it is. And I was just like, you want to play college basketball? I would really recommend that you do not put that on the internet. That
Yeah.
that's your team that you made, right? And so those
Mhm.
are the certain things that if it's a college where he's picking between that player and player B, right? They're going to take player B because they don't have this stupid Instagram thing where
Right.
it's a little controversial, right? And
Yeah.
so just really working on that portrayal. I think that's really important for the coaches to talk about that work with youth athletes that want to play
Yeah.
college, any college sports, and then also the parents of those athletes as well. Is there anything else that I'm kind of missing that's important to the recruiting process for me to kind of relay on to the coaches, athletes, and parents I work with?
Yeah, communication is huge. I think a lot of times we reach out to athletes and sometimes they're interested and sometimes they're not. But, just being open and honest with the coaches that you're getting recruited by, and just, being honest with yourself, and, what is it that I want? And I think a lot of times it's really tough when we have potential student athletes who we think are really great and who we think that we're going to get and then we don't hear from them ever, or they email us a few times and then you know they stop the communication and then we don't know, are you still interested or have you committed somewhere else? So I think just being really open in communication and just being honest, and even if it's, hey, like I am really interested in your program, but I've been looking at, a few others and right now they're higher up on my list, but like I'll let you know if things change. And that way
Right.
at least we know. So I think communication is just a really, really big thing.
That's huge. All right. So y'all hear that, right? Make sure we're communicating because and that's one of the things like I've even had conversations that's not even related to athletics, right? People get a job interview and they don't hear back for like months, but and it's just like it's that lack of communication, right? That void. It's just like, as people, we're just going to fill it with, oh, I guess they don't want us, or I guess,
Mhm.
and so just shoot them, hey, me and my parents only need 2 more weeks to decide. We're looking at 2 other schools, just
Right.
looping those schools in. And that really takes what, 2 minutes tops to send that email. Like, if you don't have that, then like playing college sports may not be a priority for you, which maybe you
Right.
say is, right. So I'm
Yeah.
sure we could have a full podcast conversation on that in itself.
Yeah.
So my last kind of question will be, this is our team event question, so I call it like the 2-minute warning. So team event, for those that are listening, is the last event in acro and tumbling. My minuscule knowledge on acro and tumbling, but I got a couple of things down. What last piece of advice would you give to the coaches and parents that are listening to this, that really want to make an impact on their athletes?
Yeah. Um, my biggest piece of advice is just to be yourself, and to be confident in yourself and know that you have the knowledge that you need, and as a coach specifically, and just, yeah, stay true to yourself, stay true to your coaching style. Everybody's different. Um, and so I think a lot of times we can get wrapped up in that and trying to, be like somebody else who, maybe has more wins than us, or all those things, but just stay true to you and to your coaching style. And, as far as parents go, like, just let them be kids. Don't put too much pressure on them to figure things out so soon. Obviously, let them be kids, let them have fun, and you know, keep them active in their sports and what they're doing. But as long as they're having fun and they're enjoying it, like, that's the biggest thing. Because if they're burnt out before they even get to the next step, it's not going to work out for them how they want it to. So just let them have fun. Be there for them, support them, and just, as long as they're having fun and enjoying it, things will go the way that they want them to. So that would be my biggest piece of advice for that.
I appreciate that, Karly. Where can people, if there's anyone that has some questions and they want to follow up with you, is there email, Instagram, best way to reach out to you?
Yeah. I have an Instagram that I don't know if I can write. Can I put
No,
in the
I'll
chat?
put it in I'll put it in the show notes. I'll put it in the show notes. So,
Okay, perfect. Yeah. My Instagram, it's Karly_Novak. That is pretty simple. And then my email, it's just knovak@uoregon.edu. You can email me, DM me with any questions that you have, and yeah.
perfect. Appreciate your time today, Karly. I love to see your growth. For those that are listening, I've known Karly since her freshman year, and now she's in her second year as a coach. So it's amazing to watch you grow and become a coach. And, selfishly, I love talking to other coaches. So it's great to catch up and great to have you on the show, Karly.
Yeah, thanks so much, Justin. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Beyond the Scoreboard podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and share it with a friend, coach, or parent you feel like would get value from this episode. It's our responsibility to impact as many parents and coaches who are the ones that are impacting our athletes. That's how we create a ripple effect. So thank you for being a part of our community, and we look forward to serving you all next week.